What's happening, Pod Squad? I'm smiling. So is this guy on my Zoom screen today because yeah, this is like one of my favorite people right here. I mean, probably the coolest hair. Let's start there.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. Always smiling too. You're always smiling.
I try.
It's your resting position is smiling. I got Eric Guy here, who does quite a bit of things. He is the Chief Victory Officer, first and foremost, of the Center for Victory, which is a super cool organization. Um, oh, you know what? I forgot your official title at Top Contractor School. Director of Education, if I remember. Is that right?
Not yeah, development and learning.
Thank
Director of,
you.
yes, yes.
Thank
And I get confused because there were two different ones out there for a while when I first started, and I always got confused. So now I still get confused about it, but that's okay.
you.
It's the same stuff. Don't
Yeah.
do anything different. It's the same stuff, just different title.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't know. Let's start with what is a Chief Victory Officer? What do you do?
I'm responsible for really setting the vision for the company. Not only that, I think if you look back at you know what we originally wanted to do, I didn't want necessarily want any of this. It was more just I wanted a good, solid family. I mean, that was always my goal. I think that's unconsciously when I was young. That's why I got into therapy and all that. And one thing led to another, and here we are. And somebody has to maintain that just the same way in a business as you would do in a home. And it's both that. It's still there, right? I just had a nice one-to-one with my daughter, who's now working in the company, but also is a part of our family. But just setting the vision for what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, with what people we're going to do it with. I think that's a kind of in a nutshell, that's what I do. Make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do, that we're delivering on the things that we're supposed to deliver on, and coming up with, sometimes it's coming up, especially the past 2 years with a couple of the programs that we offer leaders, is just being able to give the clients that we do have more of us. So we're all working at our highest and best use.
That makes sense. So I buried the lead. You're a licensed social worker, but you've also obviously very much integrated this with business, and the two are kind of working somehow harmoniously. What does this look like? Because I guarantee you, there's pavement business owners listening to this going, "Yeah, but what does he do?"
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, so to jump back a little bit, just to give you some context for it. Again, I didn't really set my sights on, hey, I want to do business, right? I really only had one business class in all the 6 years in graduate and undergrad. But my work as a therapist and things like that, when I initially started out, just the same as you would go to the doctor and bill that way, we had to bill this in a similar fashion, taking insurance and things like that, and that got old very, very quick. uh, had I had some of the tools that we use now, Cam, I would have known why that got old very, very quick, with the assessments and things. But it got old very quick. I didn't like it. I got to be an expert in an area that I was known for, so I had people really driving 2.5 hours just for an hour session, and I thought that was ridiculous. So I got done with insurance, private pay, started going into people's homes where I would stay for periods of days, like just embed myself in their home. And these were folks that had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes for treatment, especially for their kids. Usually it was for their kids that had attachment issues. So not that it wasn't some biological families, but the majority of it was adoption, foster care, things like that. And I tell everybody that because that's what got me to what I do now. Because those folks who were paying out of pocket were typically higher up in companies, owned companies, C-suite VPs, And they said, "Man, you got to come do this in my company. Like this is like you've got my kid off meds, you've got my marriage healed, my kids like me again. Like how can I do this in my company?" And yeah, it was there where I really didn't want to do it, didn't think I had the chops to come into a business. But the other thing that really occurred to me is like I can only guess so much, right? And I need to spend a lot of time with people to understand them and things like that. And I needed some way to really streamline that and quicken that. And that's where I got into the world of psychometrics. We do several different assessments. So, this is what I do for those that are listening, right? We use those assessments in different ways. We use it for um, the whole employment life cycle. So whether it's attracting people, hiring them, onboarding, personal and professional development, coaching, conflict resolution, team building, succession planning, it's really the whole 9 yards. And then if you want to go deeper, we really do the personal development. That's where somebody's more doing the one-on-one coaching. And then for our clients that have been with us for a while, we do cohorts inside of their company. So leadership cohorts. And a couple of the things that we've added over the past couple of years that you know about, Cam, but maybe other people don't know, is we do the Dream Manager. So if you're not familiar with the Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly, we do that curriculum. It's a year or two, depending on what the client wants. And we can also do that individually too. So we are able to go inside a company, do that program, conduct that program, and then um, kind of move on if they want a second year. And then 2 years ago, I think we started and we developed along with our chief adventure officer here, Caleb. Uh, we started doing the leadership out in the wilderness. So the AMP, so Invention, Mission, and Purpose, is that what that's what that stands for? Invention, Mission, and Purpose. Or we're taking leaders, sometimes the leaders and their right hand people, their leaders, the leaders and their leaders out, typically for a period of a couple of days, going on hikes, pushing the limit there physically and emotionally, and then coming back together as a group and working on the personal and professional dynamics. That's what we do.
I mean, it's so cool. It's different. It's unique. Like it's very apparent when you go on the website, or you just research who you are and what you do. Like there's a lot of emphasis placed on people, a lot of emphasis on humans connecting with other humans, and I think it's interesting, like really interesting, that you've chosen to, especially in the last year and a half, like you've aligned with an organization like Top Contractor School that is primarily served by contractors in the asphalt industry, which primarily has stereotypes and little I don't know what you'd call them, personality quirks, I guess you could say, from some of the people working in this. So here you are over here, like connection, and then you got blue collar, you know difficulties at times. So what have you observed working with blue collar companies? Like what do you think they could be doing better? What do you do to help them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what I grew up in. I mean, I grew up, I lost, half the side of my face at one time, at least my teeth in the steel mill. I worked on the iron for a little bit. So I was an iron worker up on those iron buildings and things, doing that. Worked as a carpenter for a while. Of course, that didn't go well either. Right? Loved those kind of things, but I grew up that way. That's what I saw. That's what I was immersed in, and probably what I'd be doing had I not got to college and learned a little bit more about myself and my talent. But I think what the great ones do is they spend time with their people. I mean, I think we inherently unconsciously know that. We're just not good at it. I wasn't good at it. I mean, the reason that I got into what I did was because I struggled severely with relationships. I mean, a huge struggle for me, huge, and learned it. And then I became an expert in treating right? Attachment and attachment difficulties, relationship issues, and things of that nature. But again, that's what I wanted. So it pushed me to that. So when you ask me that question, we can always get better at doing that. Like we want human connection, we want to be purposeful. I think there is something about very special. I always sometimes get a little envious of contractors from time to time, comparing them to what I do, because like sometimes I feel like my work's never done with someone.
Hmm.
Whereas you get like a parking lot, you know when you're done, either when you're
Yeah.
striping it, whether you've asphalted it, whether you concreted it, when you go and do a remodel of a home, you know when you're done, and you get to see that, right? You get to go like, wow, that was good work. Sometimes that's not always the case for me. Um, and and I say that tongue in cheek because I know it is, but it's just not as simple as that, right? We're always growing, we're always developing, but I think contractors could get a lot better at that human connection side, understanding themselves, and getting to the point where it's just not transactional in nature, where it becomes a lot of what we preach at TCS is that relational side of things. I've watched you and others that have been part of TCS that have taken your company to that next level. Who and again, nobody's perfect at it, right? Nobody's perfect at it, but taking that initiative to be less transactional and more consultative, relational in nature, and taking responsibility for that first. And it shows in the work, it shows in the bottom line a lot of times with the contractors that are willing to do that.
Let's say that let's say that I'm listening to this and I am a business owner. Got my striping company, got my patching company or my seal coating company. I got like 2, 3, 4 employees. It's now like, it's now June, so it's the busy season. So maybe I need to add more people. And that's a whole thing in itself and the difficulties of hiring. But so if I'm that person listening to this and you're telling me that human connection is like the pivotal, like you said, cornerstone. It's like the cornerstone of success. How does that manifest itself for me as a business owner? Like, what do I do to ensure that I have connection with my 2, 3, 4, 5 employees or whatever, so that I can not just make money, but make it all work? Because that's hard.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy. I think a lot of times that happens. That's what people hear. Like, Eric, you sound like it's easy. It's not easy. We're all difficult in our own different way. Uh, but when you look at that scenario that you've put out there, I think the biggest thing that we need to focus on first is what I refer to and heard of as the platinum rule. Like, treat people the way they need to be treated. And when people get what they need, they put in the effort, right? When they know the bigger picture. Hey, look, this parking lot is going to change lives. Well, how's it going to change lives? I went past this morning of a new grocery store is getting put in not too far from us, which is a big deal because I don't live near the city, right? And they just put all new pavement in, right? And I watched it, and then I know the next step because I've been involved with TCS for so. Okay, like who's going to stripe it? Like who's I'm watching for all that. And like, oh, there's a Lee boy there. I see, but those make a difference. How you're making a difference in somebody's life by providing a place where they can go in, where they can get in and out very quickly. It makes a difference, and when people are connected to that mission and that vision, and you treat them correctly, you treat them how they need to be treated, you get that back tenfold, I believe. Right? People are willing to go that extra mile, and don't do it maliciously. Right? I'm not. I tell people like this. None of this should be done in an evil way. Right? If you know what that light looks like, use the force for good and not evil. Right? Because some people do use it for evil, and that's unfortunate. But I think most of us want to know that, and we just don't take the time to do that. Like, what's going on? What do you need? What do I need? How do you best work? What do you need from me? Sometimes it's just a couple attaboys, and
Hmm.
we don't do it. We were talking about that yesterday on on the inner circle call. Give a shout out to Keith Calloway Jr. But he was talking about culture, but how to we were very specific on how to reinforce our cultural values inside of our companies. That's what we were talking about. How do you reinforce? How do you reward those things? And it was a good topic because a lot of times we don't necessarily do that, especially as contractors. But I even think like I struggle with that sometimes because it's like I'm paying you to do your job. Why do I have to give you extra? Right? Sometimes you get that mentality. It's like, okay, well, I know I should say this, but like, why do they need to hear it? I'm already paying them. But treating people how they need to be treated and giving them what they need, whether it's FaceTime, right? Whether it's just a call, whether it's a pat on the back, whether it's, some recognition that's in private versus public, whether it's a challenge. Some people like challenges. Yeah. Some people like the details. Others don't like to be micromanaged. But when we don't ask those things or when we don't try to understand those things somehow, it all starts falling apart. But when you start doing those things, you create not just the person, but you create the culture where everybody's doing that for everybody, and it gets reciprocated back and forth to everybody because everybody's doing it, and then that's where the energy comes, and that's where the culture is created.
I've learned that the hard way. Well, I'm the kind of person that you know this about me. Unfortunately, you know all my psychological details. Yeah, so I'm a very hands-off manager. I don't like to micromanage, and that is well and dandy for someone who responds favorably to that. Not so good, I've learned, if somebody thrives in having a precise structure of their environment as opposed to me just saying, yeah, you'll get it. Go figure it out, right?
That's the that comes out of my mouth a lot. Just figure it out.
You'll get it. I trust you. Is there an example of? I mean, hopefully construction. So maybe it's more recently. I don't know. But is there an example of a company that you've worked with and you've seen a business owner really embrace this and had good results from it, from really trying to understand their people and that connection?
Well, I just think when the light bulb goes off, right?
Mm.
It's what was that? 2 weekends ago, I did a retreat for a company here, and it was just 5 people, their leadership team. We were just together for the day, and we were going through the predictive index and training them on that. And the light bulb went off. It's like, man, and if we just did that, like we did a lot that day, but if we just did that platinum rule, like how far would that move the needle? Like if I'm talking to you and we know that and we're in a meeting and it's uncomfortable to everybody else that we're going back and forth and it looks heated, but we don't think it's heated. We know we're getting somewhere and we go off to lunch and everybody's wondering which one of us is coming back and we're going to lunch like that was a great meeting, right? But that's a big movement if we understand that. It's like, okay, well, maybe we need to have this back and forth. If we're going to challenge each other this much, Cam, maybe we need to have this privately instead of front of our team because it makes the team uncomfortable. But for them, for that particular company, it was that light bulb moment where they were like, man, if we just did that one thing, that would move the needle tremendously. If I understood, because a lot of times I'll tell people that start, right? You can forget the person's name, but never forget how they're wired because the moment you see them, you can give them a couple minutes of what they need and it'll make a world of difference.
Mm. It makes total sense to me. So that goes hand in hand with something else that you speak about a lot, which is unfortunately like the self-limiting aspect in people, but also teams itself. So how have you? What does that look like in smaller, construction companies, blue collar companies? What are these roadblocks with self-limiting beliefs, specifically in like the owners and teams?
I think what makes us creates us, right? Or maybe it's the other way around, right? But when we grow up in a certain environment, right? And all you know is that, right? All I know is how to be blue collar, right?
Mhm.
Nobody taught me about how to manage wealth, how to manage my finance, if I could get farther along, right? I mean, when I went to the steel mill, man, I thought I hit the lottery because it was just so much more than working on the farm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was. I was really excited about it, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I worked my tail off. Unfortunately, I had an accident, but that really literally knocked some sense into me because I got hit with a crane hook. Uh, and I had to think about it for the next 3 months as I ate food out of a straw. But you know, when you think about that whole environment is just shifting your paradigm into, look, it's okay. We don't have to go back into those things that we grew up in. So those self-limiting beliefs, right? Because you just hit those ceilings, and you see so many people, you know, do that. It's funny that you asked me that question because my daughter and I were just talking about this morning. Like how do you get to that point where you break free from those self-limiting beliefs? What do you have to do? And we discussed this morning is sometimes you have to let go of some relationships, right? So some people are pulling you down. You want to get around the people that are pulling you up. And again, that's why something like a TCS works, because those are people that are challenging you to be better, right? They're challenging how you think about things. They're challenging your limited beliefs and saying, look, if you want to make, a certain income, you can, but like, don't limit yourself by that, right? Not every, and some of it is, well, blue collar, we got to work 60, 80 hours a week. Well, do you? Like, I don't know. Like sometimes we do, but there are other times, like, who told you that? Right. I remember I always use this story. My father-in-law, uh, always used to say to me, "When you going to get a real job?" Right. I mean, he was blue collar, tried and true, man, and those are the things that he was. He just doesn't understand like how it worked. But I was looking at very early on. I didn't know those self-limiting beliefs. I mean, I was very, very fortunate to have one of my graduate professors, after I'd written a paper, pull me aside after class and tell me, like, you need to get your one very well written paper. Like, I thought I was getting in trouble. I'm like, she probably thinks I plagiarized this. Like, I'm just sweating bullets. And she's like, excellent, but you need to work on your paradigm. She's like, you need to shift it. And because if you always think like this, you're always going to stay where you're at. And that was profound because that was almost 30 years ago that she said that to me. And a light bulb went off that day. I walked, I think I took the stairs down to the cathedral learning that day. So I walked down 33 flights, just thinking about what she had said to me. And I'm like, man, like, she's right. Like, there's other stuff there that I need to unpack. And I see a lot of people, contractors, blue collar folks, get to that ceiling and then they just become their own worst nightmare, because they won't go any farther because of they don't have a comprehension of what that looks like. Like, they can't think outside the box to think, okay, well, I only have this small company. Let's just keep it small. I don't want to grow, because if I grow, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. But they don't have a framework for how to grow that, or how to make it bigger, or that you're allowed to make it bigger, that you don't have to be out working all the time. You don't have to be on the job site all the time. And yeah, I think you're getting to see that less and less, but those are still some of the paradigms I think that are out there that people need to shift, that really hold them back. Because if you're on the job site all day long, there's very little time for you to develop your people. There's very little time for you to develop yourself. There's less time for you to spend any time with your family. And that's why we see a lot of folks that have those self-limiting beliefs. They struggle with, you know, alcohol, drug abuse. Their families are fragmented or dysregulated. So you see a lot of that, instead of flipping it around where it's like, okay, I changed that framework. Now I'm taking care of my family. I'm taking care of my employees. So I think those are the some of the self limiting beliefs that I see the most in that area. But with a lot of people, it doesn't apply to blue collar. But I see that a lot for us folks that are doing work like that.
So how do you start the paradigm shift then?
I think it's really to get clear with people on what it is that they want. Why did you start? What are you trying to accomplish?
Isn't that amazing how difficult that question is? Sorry to interrupt you, but I've learned this a lot in the last like 6 months to a year. Why is always a great question, but like just asking somebody, what do you want? Melts their brain sometimes.
Oh, yeah, because it's the first question I ask with any of my coaching clients, and then they just like it is. It just they go into this mind melt. It's like, oh God, I could tell you everything I don't want.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah, the great. Well, what do you want? Right? Because if you don't have a target, you're going to be miserable. You're going to have you could have a great business. I've worked with a lot of CEOs that I would give my right arm for the kind of business that they have, but they're miserable because it's not what they wanted, right? And then they make themselves more miserable because they go back into those self-limiting beliefs, right? It's like, well, I got to work all this time, I got to spend all this time, and then they don't have the family that they wanted, they don't have the life that they wanted. They thought it was going to somehow be different, but it really comes down to like, what do you want? Like, what do you really want? Like, be honest with it. Because we all there's I don't think there's any wrong answer there. You just need to know,
Yeah.
right? I wanted different things when I started out. So like one of our goals, one of our BHAGs has nothing to do with revenue. It's lives touched, right? That's where we want to make the impact because I believe if we make an impact there, that revenue, whatever it needs to be, will come. And so with that in mind, I'd never tried to, you know, live crazy luxurious life. Maybe we could have, right? Just that's not what I wanted, right? I wanted to create a place. I mean, now that I feel blessed every day that our office is actually on the property that we have. We made that shift 7 years ago. It was a goal, right? Didn't come all at once, but we needed to know what we wanted. Like I come down here and I work, and I leave, and I walk, right? A lot of days, and if I want to go wherever, I do that. I don't want to paint it all like it's sunshine and rainbows, but when people aren't clear, when they don't specify what it is that they want, then they're just shooting haphazardly at an unseen target.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you about like one of my favorite things, just predictive index, because I just love it. It's awesome to see um, everything you've just described and, the platinum rule, treating people how they should be treated. But sometimes well, what does that look like? And I think the predictive index does a fantastic job of showing like this is what it looks like. Because one thing I've been guilty of in the past is kind of just lumping everyone together based on their job position, right? So all my striping technicians, well, they're all the same because they're all technicians. They're so not. Humans are just fascinatingly complex. So break it down for me, brother. Predictive index and behavioral assessments in particular. What is it, and why is it so stinking effective? Why is it so good?
Well, it gives us a glimpse. It gives us a peek underneath the hood. A lot of times, what we do is we just look at behavior and then we guess,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, they're this, oh, they're that, right? And we do it, and people are going to hear that and say, no, I don't do that. Yeah, you do. We all do it. We do it unconsciously a lot of times, and again, that goes back to our paradigm. It's a lot easier. Birds of a feather flock together. The easiest relationships to have are the people like me. It's easy to have a relationship with you, Cam, right? Because we're wired the same. It's not, then I get upset with everybody else that's not like me, right? And that's what I need. I mean, people laugh when I say before I had, an assessment tool. I mean, I blew through, admins like crazy. I mean, like two or three a year. And it's like, wow, man, like what's wrong with these people? And then I finally had the like epiphany, like there's only one thing that's common here, and it's me. Um, but using a behavioral system and a good behavioral system, because there's a lot of crazy ones out there too, um, that are wacky, pretty wacky, but there are some that are really solid and really good. And if you use them, and again, I'm talking about if you use them for good, right? Not evil. If you use them for good, it just gives you a glimpse into not the behavior, it gives you a glimpse into their drives. And what that does is it opens up your eyes to what that person needs and how they're likely to behave in different situations.
So how does it actually work? Like, how is someone taking this assessment, and what do they get?
So the predictive index, and all of them are different. Like they're, some are very quick, some take a long period of time. But the predictive index, why I like it and why I switched to it years ago, is if it's very easy. It's very easy to do. It's online. Um, it takes, what is it, 6.7 minutes on average to complete, and it spits you out everything about yourself, how you like to be managed, how you like, you can go into the coaching, you can go into how you sell, how you influence people, and it gives you just a real good idea of what drives that person, so that will indicate what they need and how they're likely to behave. Also, there's a software with it. One of the other reason that I like it, it's quick to take. It's done in a way that doesn't force you to pick anything that you don't want to, right? It's free choice. And a lot of them are forced choice. And then the other thing that I love about it and is the objectivity, because it's not everybody's PI is wonderful, right? You're perfect the way you are. What we're looking for to do with that, especially as a workplace analytic, is to make it so we're putting the right people in the right seat. So you're not putting me as your accountant, right? Might interview well for it, but like I'm going to take the company down in less than 12 months. That you put me in a role like a salesperson, like business development, that's more suited for me. So then you don't have to manage all the gaps, right? You're just managing mostly the person. You're just giving the person what they need. You don't have to coach the role and the person. Like that's what we're trying to avoid. Like we can do a lot of things,
Mm.
right? And that's what we're measuring with PI. Not can. What we're measuring is will. Will a person do it, and will they do it well for long periods of time? Like what I do most of my day, like I don't need to, like if I didn't need money, I would still probably do similar things. I'd still be chatting with people, I'd still be helping them out, I'd still be working with them, I'd still be challenging them, right? So it doesn't feel like work. And that's the lovely thing about a tool like this, is when you get to that point where you can help people understand their talent and their genius and unlock that for them. For some jobs, they don't leave, or if they do leave, they're still having a great word about you from where they left. Because a lot of people may, if they're going to leave, they probably leave because they have to move, or they've been given an offer that's so incredible that we can't afford to keep them. But even that it feels good, right?
Yeah.
It feels good to be able to do that for somebody, and to see that come out in somebody else, just to see their genius revealed, but them to really self actualize, like this is who I am, and like, yeah, I can't do this, but I'm really great at doing this, and that's my lane, and that's what I'm going to stay in, and everybody around me appreciates that, knows it. That's when a company culture really clicks. It's like, well, I don't complain about Cam anymore, because like he's bringing in the bacon, and even if he slips up here and there with an order form, I got his back, because like he's paying for my kid's college, like that kind of thing, right?
It's this predictive index thing. I was just double checking. I got it right here on my phone. But yeah, it's. I know you've heard me say this, Eric. Improved my marriage. Unbelievable. So I was the person who would like, and you know this about me, I want to talk about stuff like right now. Like let's figure this out. Come on now. So when I leave This is 100% true. Like literally every day when I leave the parking lot at the office, whether I'm going to like pick up the kids or I'm going home for the day or I'm meeting a client, whatever, it doesn't matter. My first thought is like, who can I call right now? Like I got to call somebody, right? Now's the time. And what I was doing at my home is stressing my wife out because if we'd have any sort of conflict, minor or major, like to me, it's like, wow, let's get this thing solved, right? Like, and so I'd chase her around the house, like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And she's the total opposite way. We took the same assessment, total opposite. And I'm glad we're opposite because that's why we work together so well. And I could never understand for like the life of me why. Why? Remember when Jordan Peterson said at the TCS event, conflict avoided is conflict multiplied? That's all I can think about is like, well, no, we got to solve this like now. And what I've learned now is like, okay, not everyone can be pigeonholed into thinking the same way this guy thinks. Like, I can't actually chase my wife around the house yelling, we got to solve this now. Maybe it's okay to give her 5 minutes. I bet you I was doing this with employees all the time too. I just didn't even know it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know that I did it a lot in our first year of marriage. It was insane. Like I'm like, we're going to talk about it. What's there to think about is what I used to say. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about it now. We're going to address it now. We're going to solve it now. Boy, that worked well.
To somebody who wants nothing, literally nothing else than to think about it and plan.
Yeah. And doesn't like conflict and doesn't what needs to think. And I'm just like, what an idiot. Like I'm fortunate that she's, that I still got her because she's, the brains behind the company.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
She runs all the stuff, like everything.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I'm once in a while I kind of feel this way. Not so much anymore. I feel like I'm getting a little more grounded, but I definitely can feel like from an employer standpoint, running a business, hiring people. Sometimes you don't always know where to start, right? So, some of the things you've talked about here today, like team meetings and retreats. I think that's an appealing thing to a lot of companies. Even a small company would love to do a retreat. PI assessments, leadership training. Like, where would you recommend somebody starts? Because there can be a lot of stuff.
Yeah, what we usually start out is just getting to know yourself. So it's a self awareness piece. So it's taking the PI or some of the other assessments that we have, the values index, which is around motivation, um, and then the attribute index, which really tells us how that person views the world, but more importantly, how they currently view themselves.
Mhm.
Right, that gives us a snapshot. That gives us kind of an X-ray and a PET scan of that whole person. Right? We like to start there to see like because what we're going to ask them is like, what do you want? What do you need? Like, do you actually want to do this? Like, I just got off the phone with a prospect, and he's like, well, what can you do for a small company? I said, well, if you're not going to use me, then I would definitely recommend some other assessment. Like, if you want something that's cheap, yeah, go do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to provide the consultation alongside of you so you can ask any question that you want. We're going to push you with these so you actually get to know them, that you get to know your people. So if you're ready for that, let's do it. If not, then, obviously think about it for a little bit until you're ready. But that's where we usually get started first because when you jump into a retreat or something like that, yeah, you want to have a little taste of what you're getting into. But some people go, they don't toe dip. They jump straight into the deep end and go, hey, look, we're gonna have a retreat. This is how we're gonna do it, which is fine, right? But not everybody decides to do that. It's usually just getting a toe wet or a couple of, just getting in up to your ankles and saying, okay, what's this all about? Because once you understand what everything is about, because some people take a behavioral assessment and they're just like, oh, this is cool, but they don't have anybody to walk them through what it actually means. Right? Like with the predictive index, it's not just about the factors, it's about the factor combinations and how they interact with one another. And then you put another person like you use with your wife, like how does that dynamic change? Well, what if we bring in two or three other people? What does that team look like? And now we have this team and now we're ready to grow. What happens if one person leaves or we bring one or two other people on? Like, how does that change the dynamic? That changes the whole behavioral identity of that team. And you have to be prepared for that. And you have to be more intentional than most people are to get the most out of that.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I would talk to you all day, but in honor, in I'm not going to. Well, you and I will talk more other times. I know we will. In honor of, I was recently on your show. Thank you, by the way. Love that. It was cool. Yeah, a couple people in my network got to see it, and I got some cool feedback from that. They got to see what you do. But in honor of me being on your show, I can't remember what the end of what's the end segment called? Rapid fire.
Rapid fire, yeah.
Rapid fire. Okay, so I got some rapid fires here. Just
You
simple.
do.
Oh,
Wow.
I got
Okay.
rapid fires. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna close it out with some Eric Guy rapid fires. All right.
All right. I'll do my best.
Here we go. You've been to quite a few places. Actually, before we were recording, you were just talking about potentially, working somewhere close to where I am. So that's kind of cool. Favorite place you've ever gone to work with a client?
To work with a client.
Not a vacation.
Right. To work with a client. Uh, I would have to say Sydney. Sydney, Australia. It's a toss up between that and Argentina.
Ooh, 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 ooh. Solid. All right. Favorite place non-work related. Like maybe it's the same.
No, it is not.
Oh,
It was definitely we've been there probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 times. Mexico. Love that Cancun area, Tulum, you know, up a little bit from Cancun. So yeah.
yeah.
Love that area, love the people.
Sweet. All right. Give me. I don't care if it's a book, if it's a specific tool or resource. Doesn't matter. You just give me one. Give me one thing that a small pavement maintenance business owner should read or consume or be involved in 2025 if they want to get a better culture. Besides, DMing Eric on social media and asking for help.
Besides the PI, I would say what really changes a lot of small business is EOS, and I don't get anything for that. I'm not saying that because I get anything for it. It changed our business when we started using it 7 or 8 years ago. Really made a huge difference on here's what we do, here's why we do it. Here, all those things that we always talk about, core values, right person, right seat. I mean, we do a good job at that already, so we already had that in place. But all the other things like how to run a meeting, how to be more efficient in this, that, and again, it's not a silver bullet. Nothing is. You have to use it. But I would say anybody that wants to kind of get the bare bones essentials, that's a great process operating system to follow.
Your spreadsheets and your systems for your business suck, and you might be losing a ton of money in your paving or your pavement maintenance business. Look, our company recently switched to One Crew, and it is the only industry specific all in one platform for paving companies, for pavement maintenance companies, striping companies. It doesn't matter if it's like the sales cycle or if you're estimating or even if you're trying to manage your crew, One Crew has features for all of that. It is unbelievably effective. So if right now you're doing a lot of your estimating on spreadsheets and at the end of the day or the end of the year, you don't even know if you're making a lot of money, I guarantee you One Crew will help you. It is so easy to make more money with this software. You'll love it. Here's the best part. Listeners of this show get $500 off of the setup fee if you go to getonecrew.com/stripe it. $500 off of your setup fee. Take a free demo and have a look for yourself, man. Getonecrew.com/stripe it. Amen. EOS is great. All right, two more quick ones. You're the director of learning and development and education, or whatever the title was that I've already forgotten, at TCS. TCS, Top Contractor School, obviously. Fantastic. You met Brian in the bottom of the Grand Canyon on completely separate trips. The craziest story ever. Who offered who? Who made the pitch? Who made the offer to work together? Who started it? You or Brian?
I think it was just so we met on the bus, right? And both of us looked at one another and it was like, do I know you? Because we it came out of our mouth. I can't remember who said it first, but it was coming out of both of our mouths when I met him. I can remember I was like in the middle of the bus shaking hands with him. We were both standing up. And I just turned around and we had that all the way through the canyon. So I think it was kind of both of us. Like I didn't really have, I was like, man, this is kind of cool what they do. I like that he's doing it. And we already had the idea rolling at that point. Like this is what we're wanting to do with leaders and their teams. And that just kind of validated more of we were on the right path thinking like that. And he said, at the end, when we got off the bus and everything, he's like, hey, like, come on in, check us out. And it was funny because, we're all the way in the Grand Canyon and I'm literally 35 minutes away from his office. Right. So it's funny because it's less miles to his office than it was walking through the Grand Canyon. Uh, but yeah, it was kind of cool because well, it was very cool because that year, we're big. The company, we have a vision day every year for our family and our community. And we cast vision, but we help people kind of put their goals, and then we do vision boards, right? And that year, uh, on my vision board was get clear on who my inner circle is, right? Like I have it, like I can prove it. And that was what it said, inner circle. Those were the words. And it, once, and when I was offered that position for TCS and then, running the inner circle, it was like, wow, I didn't think it was going to manifest that way, but it's cool that it has because it's put me in touch with guys like you and folks that really want to do better for themselves, their employees, their families, and their communities.
Love it. Yep, the circle found you. All right, last one. What's the biggest myth in the hiring process or the biggest annoyance that you see being perpetuated that you would just love to see squashed?
That there's no talent out there. That's BS.
You just got to find it.
You just got to find it. You got to create the environment for it to find you.
Oh, that's even better. Create the environment for the talent to find you.
Yeah, the last three people that we've brought in, I have not run ads for. They've reached out to us.
That's
And I see that at TPG too. I mean, Brian is very good at that. Like, I mean, he's meeting with somebody. He texted me last night. He's like, hey, I'm meeting with such and such on Friday. And it was a guy that reached out to me and said, hey, can you connect me with Brian? I think what they're doing over there is really cool. And this guy's like high level, like really high level, like C-level person. And he's like, I see what you're doing over there. I want some of that. So create the environment for it, for people to want to come, that they're banging down the door to get in.
I love it. Make it an undeniable choice, eh? Very nice. Well, my friend, we're going to make sure that we put all the places where we can find you. Definitely Center for Victory, definitely Top Contractor School. It's all going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, man. What an absolute joy to chat with you today.
Yeah, I could, like you said, I could chat all day with you, man. Appreciate it.
Well, I'll stop recording and then we'll chat more. How about that?
All right, sounds good.